course covers internal combustion powered forklifts. You'll learn about the types of forklifts, parts of the forklift, controls and indicators, safety labels, safety devices, attachments, and refueling safety. There are three basic designations for internal combustion powered forklifts based on what fuel they use. D is for diesel, G is for gasoline, LP for LP gas. Only electrical forklifts should be used in closed buildings unless special ventilation is provided to remove the exhaust gases from gas, diesel, or LP powered forklifts. Other additional designations provide special designs of the electrical systems for preventing sparks or heat from the forklift causing fires and explosions in high hazard areas. The basic parts of gas-powered forklifts include engines, tires, safety and warning devices, forklift controls, instrument panel, forks, mast, attachments, and information labels. There are several fuels including gasoline, diesel fuel, and liquid petroleum gas, as well as compressed natural gas for some forklifts. Newer forklifts with internal combustion engines have onboard sensors that monitor and adjust emissions. Potential hazards include exposure to engine exhaust containing carbon monoxide, exposure to spills and leaks of fuel and oil. Safe practices include: do not operate in a poorly vented area where fumes can concentrate. Be sure to clean up all oil and fuel spills immediately. Check all fluid levels, including oil, water, and hydraulic oil levels. Check for leaks from the hydraulic cylinders, the battery, and the fuel system. Check the exhaust color for incomplete combustion. Check and report unusual noises or excessive vibration. Be sure you understand the refueling hazards for gasoline and diesel internal combustion forklifts. Safe practices include: refuel only at designated safe locations outdoors and away from heat sources. Stop the engine before refueling. Do not smoke while refueling. Do not allow the forklift to become low on fuel. Tank sediment can cause difficulty starting and damage to the engine. Fill the fuel tank at the end of each day to prevent condensation inside the fuel tank. Do not fill the tank to the top. It may overflow because fuel expands as it heats. Follow these safe refueling procedures. Park the forklift in a designated refueling area. Place the transmission in neutral. Lower the forks to the ground. Engage the parking brake. Shut off the engine. Open the filler cap. Fill the tank slowly. Avoid overfills and fuel spills. Then close the filler cap. Be sure to understand the refueling hazards associated with liquid petroleum. Liquid petroleum gas, or LPG, is commonly used as a fuel for forklifts. It's a safe fuel when handled properly. When handled improperly, it can cause serious injury or death. Potential hazards include: LP gas vapor is heavier than air and will seek the lowest lying area. If not adequately dissipated, it will collect in pockets and possibly ignite when exposed to a heat source. LP gas is extremely flammable. Also, LP gas is extremely cold when exposed to the atmosphere. If your skin is exposed to LP gas, you can get frostbite. Safety practices include: do not refuel LP gas-powered forklifts in confined areas where the gas vapors could collect if a leak occurred. Don't leave LP gas-powered forklifts near heat sources, stairways, exits, or other egress areas. When parking your LP gas-powered forklift for a long period of time, turn the service valve off. Only trained and authorized personnel should replace the LP gas containers. Follow proper procedures for storing and handling liquid petroleum gas. As a forklift operator, you're required to read and understand and comply with all safety labels. Warning labels or decals that provide safety information to operators must be clearly visible to the operator and must be replaced if missing, damaged, or illegible. Danger means hazard may cause death or serious injury. Warning means Follow direction to prevent death or serious injury, and caution means precautions to avoid minor or moderate injury. Other important information about your forklift can be found on the nameplate or data plate. It has important information about type, weight, capacity, and attachments. Labels are attached to each forklift and indicate the model and serial number, weight, dimensions, and capacity. Don't operate a forklift with an unreadable or missing nameplate. Capacity is the manufacturer's guideline for how much weight a forklift can safely lift. Exceeding the capacity of a forklift presents serious hazards, including tip-over. Safety practices include checking the nameplate for carrying capacity and maximum height, do not exceed the capacity of the forklift, and understanding that addition of an attachment lowers the load capacity of a forklift. Be sure you understand that the size, position, and weight distribution of the load also affects capacity. Every forklift has many safety devices. Be sure to check and use all the safety devices on your forklift. These include seat belts, horns, backup alarms, fire extinguisher, warning and flashing lights, directional signals, and brake lights, as well as mirrors. To safely operate your forklift, you must understand all the controls. The steering control is generally a wheel or a lever or possibly foot operated. Forward and reverse controls allow you to move the forklift forward or backwards. Hydraulic lift controls control the rise and lowering and tilting of forks. Pedals are used for brakes and acceleration. Side shifter controls enable the forks to be moved slightly to the left or to the right. The parking brake allows you to set the brake when leaving a forklift, but you should also block the wheels if the forklift is parked on an incline. Different types of forklifts have a variety of instruments on the dashboard. Be sure to read your operator's manual and become familiar with each type of warning light and gauge on the dashboard. Never operate a forklift with a warning light or gauge signaling in unsafe condition. Turn on the forklift, check all warning indicators. Never operate a forklift with a warning light or gauge signaling in unsafe condition. Do not attempt to repair unless you're authorized to do so. Be sure to report any abnormality to your supervisor. All gas-powered forklifts have an oil pressure gauge, or oil pressure indicator. The oil pressure gauge indicates the oil pressure inside the engine. An oil pressure warning light may also be present. Safety practices include: do not operate the forklift if the light comes on or the gauge indicates oil pressure problems. Check for leaks. Clean up any spills or mark the hazard area until it can be cleaned. Notify your supervisor or maintenance personnel of any oil leaks or oil spills. Only trained and authorized personnel may service a forklift. The engine temperature gauge is similar to the engine temperature gauge found on a car. Safety practices include: do not operate a forklift if the engine hot light comes on or the temperature gauge indicates an overheated engine. Check for leaks. Clean up any spills or mark the hazardous area until it can be cleaned. Notify your supervisor or maintenance personnel of any overheating equipment. Only trained and authorized personnel may service a forklift. Allow an overheated forklift to cool down before removing the radiator cap. When removing the cap, wear leather gloves and eye protection and open the cap slightly to check for stored pressure before completely removing the cap. The transmission temperature warning light or gauge indicates when the transmission temperature is too high. Safety practices include: do not operate a forklift if the light comes on or the gauge indicates an overheated transmission. Check for leaks. Be sure to clean up any transmission fluid spills or mark the hazardous area until the area can be cleaned. Notify your supervisor or maintenance personnel of any hydraulic leaks or transmission leaks. Transmission fluid may be added. Only trained and authorized personnel may service the forklift. The fuel gauge shows the amount of fuel remaining. On LP gas-fueled forklifts, a pressure gauge may be installed to show the remaining fuel available. Safe operations include: do not operate while extremely low on fuel, check the fuel level during your daily inspection, do not top off the fuel tank, overfilling leaves no room for fuel expansion, and refuel only in designated areas, clean up any spills, or mark the hazard area until it can be cleaned up. The forks carry the load. They have a heel where they curve upward and upright shank where they are attached to the carriage. Always be sure to look for defects: surface cracks, blade and shanks that are not straight, a fork angle that's not straight, a difference in height of the fork tips, positioning lock not in working order, a fork blade or shank wear, fork hook wear, or fork markings that are not legible. Safe operations include: do not operate the forklift if the forks show any defects. Always inspect forks during the pre-operation inspection. Check the locking pin. Locking pin holds the forks in position and prevents sliding of the forks and loss of your load. The forklift mast is the vertical assembly that does the work of raising, lowering, and tilting the load. The carriage is made of a flat metal plate that move along the mast by chains or are directly attached to the hydraulic cylinder, which provides the force to move the mast. Mast configuration can affect the operator's visibility. Newer mast designs provide improved visibility compared with older designs that have a single central cylinder. In all cases, the operator should travel with the load trailing and/or use a spotter whenever necessary to ensure adequate visibility. There are several different types of forklift tires depending on how the forklift is used. Common types of forklift tires include air-filled, solid, or polyurethane. As part of the pre-operational inspection, check tire conditions, including cuts, gouges, excessive tread wear, and pressure for air-filled tires. Overhead guards are a very important safety feature. The overhead guard protects you, the operator, from large falling objects. They're good for protection against falling objects such as small packages, but may not withstand the impact of a falling capacity load. Always wear a hard hat for additional protection. Keep hands and feet within the forklift to avoid danger of falling loads. Use a load backrest extension behind the forks when necessary to minimize the possibility of the load or part of it from falling rearward. All high-lift rider forklifts, order picker forklifts, and rough terrain forklifts must be equipped with an overhead guard unless the operating conditions do not permit. As part of the daily inspection of the forklift, check the overhead guard for broken welds, missing bolts, or other damage. Operating forklifts with installed attachments requires a much larger safety margin. Attachments alter forklift performance by changing the center of gravity, visibility, and capacity. Examples of forklift attachments include slip sheet attachments, which avoid the use of pallets, container handlers to shift shipping containers, carton clamps with pressure valves to squeeze the load, bale clamps that grab and hold bales, barrel clamps, rotators that grab and rotate rolls, extending or telescoping forks, and personal platforms for lifting of people. Attachment hazards include overloading and tip over and falling loads. Safe operation includes knowing the attachment operation, its use, and the limitations. Know the new mechanical limitations of your forklift with attachments. Modifications or additions require written approval from the forklift manufacturer.